This is the Dog Savant Podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Hello and welcome to the Dog Savant Podcast. I'm Brett, I'm your host. Today is episode 55. What is this show about? I am a Los Angeles dog trainer. This show is about dog behavior, dog training, problem behavior solving, puppy development, and my life as a dog trainer and a resident of Los Angeles doing what I do in a very unique climate and client base. With that said, I am actually in New York this week, so this recording is going to sound maybe a little different. It's also going to be a unique episode. What we're going to do is give you an audio version of the Q&A I did for my show, The Untrainables. I find that I'm much better answering dog training questions on the fly or being in a real-life situation while working with dogs and owners. So I get some good tips there I can get out there for you, and I feel that when I've done these rapid-fire live Q&As, I was really able to tap into that. So I want to share that with you guys, my listeners here. And with that said, please, I always want to cover this no matter what. Please rate, subscribe, share this, go on my YouTube channel, subscribe to that as well. Please send me your questions, dogtrainingla@gmail.com, and you can go to most of my social media at The Dog Savant. If you want to support the show, it's patreon.com/The Dog Savant. But just let me know you're listening. I love getting your emails telling me that you enjoy the show. A little bit embarrassed. I was told by some of my relatives that they listen to the show. It's always awkward when it's real, and these are people that you're more personal with. I'm pretty good at, I don't want to say disconnecting, but talking to a phone and letting my personality open up a little bit, sharing some stuff that I've shared with you on other episodes that's a little more personal in my life and emotional for me, and even just my point of view and a little bit of my frustration dealing with certain types of minded people, especially when it comes to the purely positive types and all that. So it was great seeing my relatives. Happy for my brother and his wife Shannon. They're married now. It was a great ceremony down in South New Jersey. Now we're in Long Island, spending the week doing the whole New York thing, touring my old stomping grounds, taking my daughter and the family out here to see all the sights in New York, Manhattan. We got a big day tomorrow. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to record a full podcast for you guys, but you're actually going to find this one's longer, much more information. I think you're going to learn a lot from this one. Again, thanks so much for listening to all you. Welcome to all the new listeners, and hopefully we'll have a new podcast for you next week. Have a great day, guys. Hey everyone, I'm Brett from the Untrainables here doing a live Q&A today. I'm going to answer all your dog training questions. Thank you so much for watching the show, and let's get right to it. So here, what's the first question?
All right, well, the first question comes from Joe Maloney. They say, we have a puppy. How best do I socialize her with other dogs who are scared of his own shadow? I think what Joe is asking is, we have a puppy that's a little scared of being around other dogs.
Okay, so it's good that you're going to focus on socialization, because at this age it's not a big deal. Any issues a puppy might have are very easily resolved with some effort and consistency. So I would really start getting your dog around other dogs, puppies, whether it be friends' dogs, family members' dogs, going on structured walks, play dates, even daycare, puppy groups they have. I'm not a huge fan of dog parks, especially for puppies. If your puppy's not vaccinated, you want to make sure the other dogs around them have their vaccines and are well behaved. We're at a dog park, you really can't regulate who's going to be showing up there. But you do want to get out there. You don't want to wait till your puppy's 4 months old to do the whole socialization thing, especially if you're already seeing your puppy having antisocial tendencies. So do some constructive exposure, get your dog out there around other balanced dogs, and if you just keep pushing the issue, you should see your dog or a puppy overcome their fears pretty quickly.
Perfect. This next one comes from Jennifer Kuros. She says, I have a runner. If she's not on a leash, she takes off and can be gone for up to 3 hours.
Okay, that's not safe.
Yeah, that's crazy. A couple nights I sat outside in the early morning hours just waiting for her to come back. Luckily, she always does.
Okay, we don't want to rely on that for your dog to return home. First thing, I would work on this on 2 levels. First of all, I would teach your dog impulse control. I assume your dog is running out the front door or off the property, so you want to teach your dog to really hold their position, do a very deep, focused sit, learn this impulse control, do 5, 10, 15-minute sits at the door while it's open, teaching her to just stay put and wait for your cue to proceed further, forward off the property, out the door and whatnot. You also want to teach your dog a strong recall. you want to have this backup plan that if your dog does get out, and take off from you, a command is going to bring them back, not relying on a 3-hour wait time. So you want to work on your dog's impulse controls, get these commands to be more valuable for her to listen to you, so they're going to be more important than her own, decisions to make, because that's not a safe decision to run off, and then team it up with a recall so you have that backup plan.
All right, great. Let's keep this going. We have a lot of comments right now.
Okay, great.
This next one is from Cheryl Wilson. They have a rescue dog who won't let them touch his ears.
Okay. First, if it's something like that, you want to rule out that there's no ear infection, any kind of medical issue. Once that is addressed, and you know that it's really just the dog being sensitive to their personal space, you have to slowly acclimate the dog to getting, because dogs don't like their vulnerable areas being touched if they have these insecurity issues. So a lot of dogs over the head, that seems threatening, or coming behind them where they're more vulnerable, they'll have some of this hesitancy towards allowing that. So depending on how long you've had the rescue dog, sometimes just letting it acclimate more into your life and giving it some time to feel comfortable and safe in your presence will let them allow you to ease into more of those kind of, if you want to call it, invasive touch exercises. Other things you can do is you can slowly chain that action where you kind of reach a little closer to the dog but not quite touching, and then give them a treat, and then over time just keep getting closer and closer, then increase the duration and intensity of the touch, and that should slowly get the dog acclimated to it. So make sure the dog is balanced and used to the new environment that he or she's living in, and then do some basic exercises just to get the dog a little bit more used to things, because once they learn, like, hey, this isn't really a perceived threat, it's actually going to feel good to get pet, they're going to seek it out on their own, but you have to get them through that little threshold of insecurity, I'm sure because of their past experiences.
Makes sense. All right, this one's from Megan Malone. She says that her dad has passed away, and
Sorry, Megan.
he left 2 pit bulls that they have taken in.
That's awesome. Thank you. Because a lot of, even myself, we worry about these things. There are children, and we wonder, is someone going to, especially if you have dogs that might be, not popular for everyone, so, it's taking on something. So we'll get into your question, but I really commend you for doing that. I'm sure Your father would be really pleased that you were willing to take on his 2 dogs.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. She's saying they're having behavioral issues now.
And they used to not have it. A lot of times when there's changes in a dog's life, or their perceived leader or authority figure is no longer with them, sometimes they're going to pick up the slack, and even dogs that got along can have some issues with each other. What I would recommend, especially if they're new into your life, is create some more structured place training around the house. Do structured walking, get them to feel that they're on the same team, and you're controlling how things go between them, and it really is just giving them a job. We always talk about place training on the show. It makes them feel that the home environment is like the office. That's their little desks or cubicle, and the commands you give them are the jobs and tasks that you're giving them as assignments, so they don't have to worry about competing with each other, thinking about the bigger picture operations, because they know you're in control and creating that order between them, and they should slowly reacclimate, especially if they've been getting along in the past. You'll be able to establish that role with you as their leader, or the one who can guide them through life without conflict as well in the new situation.
Perfect. All right, this one is from Delilah. She writes, "Hi, my 3-year-old dog won't walk. He just lies down on the pavement and refuses to move. Tried tempting him with treats, but it doesn't help."
Are you using a harness? A lot of dogs, they'll either pull forward or back when you're using a harness. So if you are, I would really go to more of a properly fitting collar, or even a training collar. It stays more up high behind the ears. You just can steer the dog a lot better that way, and you're not getting this opposition physical reflex against this kind of diffused energy across their body. So I'm assuming that. But even if not, you want to teach your dog a good heel command or a let's go command. You've seen it in the show where we teach the dog to focus on one side. So all of their insecurities, their control issues, that goes to the wayside, because now they have a commitment to focus on what you ask them to do. It creates order, gives them this feeling that you're leading them through these new environments. A lot of dogs going on the walk can be scary, because you're asking them to experience the world when they're on a short little leash, so they have to trust that leash as their guiding light. So the commands will really help kind of break through that threshold. You don't want to drag your dog, but you want to teach your dog the ability to focus to replace some of these resistances. And whether it be pulling or dragging against the leash, it's a better way to create a flow in walking.
Perfect. Susan Oliveris writes, "I can't get my dog to stop licking her paws."
Your dog might have some anxiety. It could also possibly be an allergy. So I always want to rule out a medical when there's anything that might seem like it's based in that. But some dogs will do some psychosomatic kind of behaviors when they have this underlying anxiety. So make sure your dog is getting enough exercise. Make sure your dog has proper nutrition. Make sure your dog is getting trained and not having any of these extraneous thoughts or questions about life, because they have that satisfaction and they have that mental and physical energy exhausted, so they don't have any of that extra energy driving them to do, whether it be licking, destructive behavior, excessive barking. A lot of these symptoms come from a deeper rooted lack of outlets for their mental and physical energies.
Great. Someone asked, and this reminds me of Bowie,
Hey,
who is
buddy.
here in the studio right now. Someone asked if Rottweilers are as good as family pets as German Shepherds are.
Any dog could be a good family pet. A guy like me who's trained every breed imaginable, rare and common, and has seen enough of them as a constant to know that why dogs have behavioral issues is not driven by their breed as much as their own individual personality and their life history and the type of relationship they have with their owner. So any dog could be a great dog. For Bowie, I try to make him this ambassador for the breed because he is so sweet and friendly, simply because I made the effort to make him that kind of dog, and that would have been any breed that I would have had as a puppy. So I think Rottweilers particularly are very bright dogs. They're very smart. They're active, so you have to make sure that they fit into your lifestyle. But as far as being a well-behaved dog, any breed can be that way if you raise them properly.
Totally agree. Lee Taylor wants to know, what's your take on doggy daycare?
Doggy daycares are great. I actually prefer them over dog parks because the dogs there are being pre-screened. We know they're vaccinated. There's somebody monitoring them. Actually, when they're in a kind of foreign environment without the owners there, they tend to integrate a little bit better because there's less at stake. Now, some daycares operate differently. So I always say you want a daycare that has like training and the understanding of how dogs work together as a pack as the undertone. A daycare that does ice cream socials and treats them like babies. I call it the romper room daycares. It's all fun and great, and it's a really good marketing tool to present their services like that, but I think when it comes down to it, it could create a little bit of a too much going on for the dogs instead of that order, so they can just play in a nice balanced way with the humans being the referees of it all. So daycares are good, but do your homework, make sure that it's a place that gets the whole dog behavior thing.
Great. All right, I have one from Kathy Peterson. Let's see. She says, I have a 6-pound mutt. Looks like it's a Chihuahua Yorkie Shih Tzu mix.
Cute.
Very cute. Most of the time she goes outside, but then she will take a week off or so and not go outside at all.
Okay. Outside in the yard, outside on the walks.
I'm assuming maybe for walks or the front yard.
And it's like good week, bad week kind of thing we're having?
I'm assuming so.
What I would do is probably, like I had the other owner that didn't want to walk, teach the dog a good heel or a let's go command to just trust walking with focus, and that should segue. A lot of it is the dog trusting that you have a better plan in place than their idea, because we're the ones who are going to take care of their needs. So if it's like, hey, you have to go out and go potty, let me show you a command to be able to show you that I understand how this is the best thing for you to do now. Because once a dog makes a decision on their own, I find that they just run with it, and then everything is questionable, where we really do know how to take care of our dogs. That's never really in debate. It's just sometimes the dogs second guess it, and that's where a lot of the issues or inconveniences come about.
Got it. I have a question from Rubu, who says, I have a 3-year-old dog that is uncomfortable to be touched. What should I do to make her comforted? I'm assuming...
This is like the other one with the over the head. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's the same thing. It's just personal space. A lot of dogs, it's just their entire body. So whether it be with you or even like guests, I do this with people who don't like being around guests that come in their home. Excuse me. You put a place bed and you start establishing these focus commands around the person that they normally keep kind of a wider distance from, to kind of breach that proximity, but in a skillful, more focused way. It shows the dog that you're in control, so they don't have to take matters into their own hands. And it comes back to what I was just saying. Dogs, when they have to second guess our ability to navigate life for them or in our shared environments, they start acting inappropriately. So by taking control of the situation, giving them order, giving them direction, you'll see right away they start opening their mind and creating this more filtered, relaxed, secure state that would let them have people closer to them, let people pet them, and all of these, social hesitancies other dogs have. With whether it be people or other dogs, it tends to be the same formula, where your leadership, your direction tends to get them to feel a lot more secure right from the start.
Great. This one's from Diana. She says, my rescue beagle is afraid of everything. She was rescued from a hunter who abused and starved her. How do we make her feel safe in her new home?
The thing about dogs that have had bad pasts, and this sometimes becomes controversial when I talk about it, is that we feel so bad about what a dog has been through, it almost disallows us to bring them up to see that the present is not going to be anything like that ever again. So what I always see is that a lot of people, through their, of course, meaning well in their compassion, are, oh, I know it's been so bad, I know you were abused, but it's like, we're not abusing you now, so by you acting on your past, it's like human psychology, when we hang on to our past, we're unable to see the present for what it is and be feeling safe and secure with it. So what we have to do is kind of rebuild this dog up. So we want to start working on some more structure, getting you to be a little bit more in this business orderly mode, because the dog is looking for that direction. The dog does not have trust in people, so you have to start showing through leadership, through focus, through socialization, and getting your dog out there more and rebuilding up. But a lot of what we do is we feel so bad for all the obvious reasons. It almost limits us from taking charge of the situation and showing the dog that we've got this covered for them, so we can build them back up to being secure in our presence. Because once we rescue these dogs from these bad situations, we're going to take care of them, and we know that. So we have to show them that, in reality's terms, not emotional. That makes sense. I know the whole emotional thing, when I talk about it, it gets a little funny, because feelings can be real to us, and when we're around our pets or other, it starts speaking to us in a way that can drive us in a direction that might not always be what the dog needs to make them feel safer, better, balanced, and resolve their behavior issues.
All right, this one is from Mandy. She says, or Maddie, I'm sorry.
Hi, Maddie.
My dog won't stop lunging, excited lunging, not aggressive, at other dogs and people. When we walk him down the street, he just nonstop lunging to play. How do they stop it?
He's probably walking in a very hypervigilant, kind of scanning way. So I always call it that mental rubber band you've heard me talk about, where the dog is already planning where they're going on a walk before they even start the walk. So they're always projecting forward, always thinking about 10 things at once. And then by the time an actual living thing like a dog or person, converges on them, it's too intense. It's just sensory overload. So we want to make sure we're walking our dog with the right equipment. It sounds like your dog may be being walked on a harness or a collar that falls too low, that promotes a lot of this pulling and lunging. So, like I said before, a collar that stays up high behind the ears, something that is going to steer the dog and promote focus and get their mind and body connected and turn off that mental rubber band. That's going to help promote focused walking right from the start. Then that focused walking can be carried over to now reintegrate your dog to other people or dogs in a calmer way, so they can learn, like, hey, if you're going to play, you're going to have to be calmer, focus on these commands first, curb your impulses, and then on my direction it'll happen. So it promotes patience, promotes structure on the walk in general, but then that's going to carry over to when you encounter some of these, interactions that are just pulling the dog in every direction.
Right.
So no harnesses.
Yeah,
I think you guys get that by now.
Yes. Rita Masson wants to know if any of this advice works on boyfriends or grandkids.
I get that question. I get the do you train husbands thing a lot. I'll tell you this much, right? I have a 13-year-old daughter who has special needs, and I was a single dad. I still am a single dad. And I raised her pretty much from the start. And of course, we don't put collars on our kids, and we don't have to throw treats at them to make them listen. There is a certain, like I was talking about before, where your emotions or feelings about things can get in the way of what the business at hand calls for. And as a parent, sometimes it requires that as well. And it's not about punishing or yelling, but there are boundaries you want to create. There's this leader role as a parent you want to take. Now, again, boyfriends, it's a little bit, you can't really take that role with them, but I still think that your ability to be neutral and kind of be objective when the other party is doing what they do can help you navigate it in a way to connect better with them, even if they have the issue. And I'm taking my own advice right now, so I'll play this back and tell me in my own personal relationships. But really what it is creating this kind of ability to not feed into something and kind of know yourself while the other party's doing what they do, and it tends to get them to give you the feedback you're looking for as well.
Got it.
A little psychology
Yeah.
there, but again, I'm not a psychologist. I should take my own advice.
All right, Chen wants to know, his sister's dog is very reactive upon people running near her, especially when they're wearing headdresses, hats, things of that nature.
The motion. A lot of dogs are reactive to moving stimuli. That's the herding instinct. A lot of dogs are meant to, when they feel something move, kind of track it and keep it in order. A lot of dogs, when they're playing, you'll see this, when they're playing, they're biting each other on their body, trying to kind of change their angles on each other. It's this symbolism for trying to create a pack amongst each other, but a lot of dogs will try to do it in their everyday life, like when the kids are moving around, or you have these flowy dresses, and it incites this like prey drive, this kind of need to bite at it and control it and track it. So what you need to do is teach your dog, coming back to the place training, more of this ability to kind of be mentally and physically in order and filtered and focused as these things go by. And then even if the dog does react to it, you've already put context in place. So if the dog is in, let's say, a down on a place, and then someone goes by with a frilly dress, and then he or she goes for it, now it's like, hey, I told you to lay down, and we're going to redirect into the command. So they learn the only way to handle it is the opposite response, a calm, observant response, and not a reactive, overstimulated one. You have to be consistent, though. So if you half the time do what I'm explaining, then half the time let the dog continue to do that. The dog may get a little better, but if you want full resolution, 100% consistency is the way to go.
Got it. All right. Ron Egan writes, I have an older dog who is deaf now and gets into stages of barking at certain times of the day and won't stop.
And I assume it's a new thing. Some dogs, when they either get older or there's a medical thing, I mean, even deaf, they don't understand. So they feel different. So sometimes they have to overexpress themselves to compensate. So what I would do is, just look at what's going to trigger the barking, or if there's just times where your dog just randomly starts barking, direct them into a more tranquil state. The commands, the training is like meditation for dogs. So it really is just turning off an overreactive state into a calm, focused, more filtered one. So I would do that. Now with a deaf dog, you can't give verbal commands, obviously. So you could work on hand signals. They have vibration pager collars you can use to associate the dog's ability to hear a vibration or a certain amount of vibrations to mean certain commands. But you can communicate, and it definitely, if you just teach your dog to just, you're still going to be okay if things are a little different. You don't have to act out. Your dog will feel a lot happier. And the good thing about dogs, they could lose a leg, they could lose their hearing. They're not like us where they make it a whole personal thing. They just compensate, adjust, and move on with life, and they're always happy.
Kayleen Carey asks about her 3-month-old puppy who loves to bite us with full force.
No good.
Yeah.
Not good. Not teething. You'll see. It's not teething.
Oh, gosh. They've tried yipping like a puppy to show that we are hurt, and
Not gonna
also
help.
tried timeouts,
Not
but
gonna
she
help.
just bites harder.
Because they're not addressing why the dog bites. You need to have a relationship with your puppy that would not make you someone that they feel they should bite. So that means creating more order in the everyday interactions. This is the hardest thing for puppy owners, because when you get a new puppy, it's so fun and exciting. You want to just let loose and enjoy it all. I tell people in most cases with puppies, the training, the structure, the not fun stuff has to come first. Then you're going to enjoy your dog for the rest of their life. I know they're cute and adorable, but right now what I'm hearing is your puppy is targeting you because he or she's becoming so overstimulated by what's going on around it and your interactions. The biting is a way to modulate their sensory system to create order and control, like dogs are biting each other. And the problem is that once they do that, it just opens up this feeling of, now I'm even more responsible because you're not addressing why I feel I have to mouth people. And that's where we're not even so much going to react to the mouthing. We just have to create more order, more structure, more leash time, more ability that when the dog's getting so revved up where it's going to turn into mouthing overstimulation, give the dog some time to take a break, and not time out, more directing them into a command right there in real time, because time out or yipping like a puppy shows that you're actually being submissive or not engaging the issue. You're just kind of avoiding dealing with it. And that right there shows you that you're more proactive, because dogs, they roll up their sleeves and they go for it. So that's what you're simulating. And your dog will respect you because of it.
Right. Kara has a question about her dog chasing cars. We have a car chaser on our hands.
Okay. If you remember, I was talking earlier about the dog that takes off out of the house. What I would do is start getting your dog around places where cars are coming by, like a busy traffic corner or something, and have the dog sit or lay down there for long duration periods of time to just replace that impulse to chase with an impulse to stay calm, focused, and non-impulsive. Well, an impulsive, non-impulsive, right. Impulsive. And then what you do is probably want to back it up with that recall, just in case if your dog does take off, you have that backup plan. But really the whole idea is teaching your dog a new association when that habit previously would be created. So it's going to take a little bit of work because that chase drive is a pretty strong thing in dogs naturally, and now that it's become a habit, you have to spend at least a month or two of just getting out there every day, getting around the cars passing, and just keep showing a different association till the dog starts taking that response on their own.
Great.
And then reward it, because that's what you're looking for. Of course.
Kim says that they have a rescued Bernese mountain dog with severe separation anxiety. How can I help him? He also has anxiety for any loud noise. He shivers and shakes uncontrollably. His previous home, he was crated a lot and physically abused. And she is home with him all the time now.
Okay. So a lot of dogs, being crated a lot isn't the worst thing in the world. The other thing is I do want to touch on the abuse thing. Sometimes dogs were not abused, and if we interpret why they're doing what they do because of that, it almost makes us not take the proper path. And there are dogs that bona fide had an awful, first part of their life, but there's some dogs that just didn't learn proper habits of navigating the shared experience and environments with humans. And that's what you have to teach a dog even later in life when you rescue it. So separation anxiety is not based on a dog missing their owner, not being used to being alone. It's actually when you're around, they're so hypervigilant to every pattern and routine that we're creating for them and us in the shared environment, they can't keep those ducks in a row when you're gone. So they're like, I've got to fight for this ability to get back in control. And then when you return, they're like, maybe that's how you get back here to keep things in order. So once they feel that when you're actually there, you're creating the order, you're giving them direction, you're slowing down that assessment of life, it then carries over to when you're actually gone, they can let it go because they know you're going to come back and cover things, But it's like if they're watching and being hypervigilant based on you being around them, how are they going to feel like they're going to get their needs met when you're gone? So they have to feel that they're earning things. You're dictating the flow of life and how things go to get their day's needs met. And then when they're alone, they're going to be able to see it more in perspective. So separation anxiety gets really misinterpreted as like the dog misses us or the dog didn't get. It's really about control. A lot of dogs just need to feel that you've got things so covered when you're there, they can take a little, mental vacation, if you will, when you're gone.
Great. All right, this next one is from Mandy. She says, I have a 4-year-old English Bull Terrier. He's extremely socialized and goes to doggy daycare frequently. However, when he meets new people, he gets excited, and his way of greeting them is to jump up and bite their sleeves.
Okay, and that's actually him getting so stimulated with the greeting. The biting is like trying to just get some order because he doesn't want to be that excited. Sometimes we misinterpret excitement that is almost too much as the dog is just that happy and exuberant. And there are moments where the dog will be very happy and exuberant, but then there's times where they're overdoing it based on what the situation calls for, and the dog will be the first one to tell you that it is overdoing it in their behavior. So the jumping, the biting. So you want to create a calmer version of greeting. If you know people are coming over, you want to have the dog already in a focused state and command. And then when the person arrives, lead them to the situation, whether it be at the door or out in public. Have the dog sit to get their attention. Have them hold a very focused sit so it can replace that over-impulsive way of greeting. And that's just going to replace the jumping, the biting with a calmer way of engaging it. And then they'll learn if I stay in that level of calm and do the command that I'm asked to do, that's how they get the reward. So it's not just ignoring them. It's actually being proactive and teaching the dog how to navigate this interaction in a different way to get the attention they're seeking a little too strongly.
Got it. This one is from Rose Snow. She writes, hello from New Orleans.
Hi, Rose.
I have a 15-year-old mix who, when younger, was okay around other dogs and tolerated cats, even though he wanted to be dominant. He's a Chihuahua Rat Terrier mix.
Cute.
So very cute. But now wants nothing to do with people or animals or anything anymore.
At that age, you might want to rule out that there's any medical things that may be making him guard his space. You can always, again, if training is going to improve the quality of life for a dog or make them feel more physically comfortable, I'm all for it at any age. What you can do is you can even give him like a bed that he feels comfortable in, and if somebody, comes over the house, you can just have the bed closer to the person than he'd want to be on his own, so you can just push that proximity. If he's calm enough and friendly about it, the person can go and give him treats just to show him. And you hear him to 15, I'm always like, well, it's kind of case by case. But any kind of training that's going to make the dog feel more safe, secure, even if it's like, well, I'll feel more comfortable dealing with a person in my house than avoiding them, that's totally fine.
Right.
Let me put Bowie in it down. Bowie,
Yeah,
lay down.
Bowie.
There you go, buddy. I know. Good boy. Okay. Training my own dog, guys.
All right, let's see. We have so many comments. I'm trying to go through and see things we haven't answered already.
This is awesome. Thanks, guys. I
Yeah,
love it. We'll try to get to as
great.
many questions as we can.
Absolutely.
Keep them coming.
See, this was from Christy Turner. She writes, "Hi, I have a Whippet and Bull, I'm assuming terrier, 12-week-old puppy.
Okay.
That, she always play bites, and she can take it a bit far sometimes."
Is that called a big bullwhip?
I'm
right?
not sure, but yeah, it should
Sorry.
be.
Dad humor.
She can't even pet her unless she is sleeping or about to sleep. This little puppy is really aggressive. It's
Okay,
about 12 weeks old.
So they have to, sometimes when they're that young and they're really aggressive, you want to look into the breeding and see like what's going on with, where this dog come from. A lot of puppies are just like that, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be like that forever, but you need to get your arms around it as soon as possible. If you're seeing a puppy already showing this aggression, aversion to being touched, held, anything that's control-based. This guy here was like that at 8 weeks old. They actually the breeder did not want me to get him because he was so reactive to being held. Even when you'd look at him, he would attack you. And I worked hard at that, and anyone who knows Bowie, he's the sweetest, most friendly dog. So it's not a lifetime sentence, but you do need to push it. I had him around a lot of other dogs because dogs are gonna train him to learn his boundaries better than we ever could, and they're gonna do it pretty instantly. So a lot of exposure to other dogs. Older, more mature dogs, do not wait till this dog is fully vaccinated to start getting around some version of being around dogs, even if it's not the dog park, somewhere, so this dog can, as soon as possible, start learning to kind of let it go because of what dogs are going to present in front of them. Then what you need to do is start working on leadership and structure training and get this dog to trust your ability to guide them through everyday life, through commands, through a more working relationship for now, and then slowly you could ease into more of a free relationship. Look, Bowie's my buddy now. We're not having, he listens, but I had to make him feel that he was here solely to work and I was the leader of the show until he realized that I was not someone to always be challenging when he would perceive something I was doing as affection, which I know you are with your dog, as some kind of slight. So you'll get there, but you have to do some of that work and be a little bit more official business and be realistic about where your puppy's at. Let's not lie about that, this puppy's gonna grow out of it, because it's something that you have to take serious right now and then you'll be okay.
Got it. Joanna, she has a 6-month-old friendly husky that won't stop climbing on tables.
Okay. That's like with a tugboat episode, right? Yeah. I would probably make sure that you're not encouraging it. So your dog should not be allowed when you're around to be on furniture. Obviously, if your dog, most dogs know when you're watching them not to do it. This, I'm always assuming the dog's trying to sneak it in when you're not watching. So I would start just with teaching more of an association of keeping 4 on the floor around tables. So every time they would think about it, if you are there, have them do some kind of command that's the opposite, like sitting or laying down. You also want to teach your dog an off command, so once they're on it, we did it in the tugboat episode, where you command them off, you lure them off, and they learn that's the command. The issue is that the dogs are going to do it when you're not there. So you can use technology. There are a number of different products, anything from scat mats to these little compressed air bottles that have a sensor that will pick up when your dog gets within the range of the table and can give them a little, little air. So anything that's going to make that association back up when you're not there, but you have to be consistent, because if a dog gets away with it, sometimes the potential is always going to be something, they're going to always try. Versus if it's just no matter what, whether you're there or not, it doesn't work, they'll tend to let it go as a complete thing. All
right, the next one is from Cheryl King.
Okay.
She has a 10-month-old that will ask to go outside to use the restroom, but still will pee in the house.
Right, because the dog's asking to go outside. Dogs need to go to the bathroom on your command unless there's some medical thing. If a dog is sick, of course you accommodate it, but a dog should be able to go out on command, if you will, empty to completion, and then go increasingly longer as you develop this. So they learn to go to the bathroom, more because you said it's time, and then they learn that they don't have that option when you come back in. So what you're going to do is, if they didn't go to completion and well, there might be a chance of them having the accident, you have to go into something like a crate or keeping them on a leash, just something that's going to limit that ability to sneak off and have the second half of the bathroom visit inside, so they can wait a little bit longer until the proper time to take them out. So the rule of thumb is about an hour for every month the dog is of age. So let's say your dog is 4 months old, you want to go about every 3 to 5 hours, if you will. So if you took your dog out to go potty, and you know within an hour she's going to come back in and go, at about an hour, you make her wait a couple more hours in that smaller space, not to punish her, just to instinctively make her hold it, and then she learns that the only opportunity to go to the bathroom is outside when you tell her, and then when she goes, you can reward her and make it clear. But if you're very consistent about it, you'll see she'll start picking up on the fact that there is no backup plan in that one window of opportunity you take her out to go to the bathroom. That's going to be, and she'll start doing it to completion on command. But a lot of dogs, when they ring the bell, or you're waiting for them to signal you, or you're trying to assess when they have to go, it makes it too convenient for them. And dogs are a little different than people. Unless there's some kind of emergency, they actually can learn to go and comfortably hold it for a period of time until the next scheduled bathroom visit that you tell them.
Got it. All right, this one's from Lee Taylor. She says she has an Anatolian Shepherd who doesn't want anyone near the house. I know he's a guard dog, but what's the best way to change that?
These are guard dogs, but I tell people, you don't want your guard dog to have a healthy fear of friendly, invited guests. So you have to socialize your dog more. You want a dog to sense the difference between normal social interactions and a heaven forbid threat, because you're going to be acting totally different, and the whole energy of the situation is going to be different than normal guests, deliveries, workers, things like that. So you would probably want to take your dog out more, teach him how to socialize and see what the world has to offer. So when someone just shows up at the house, it's not like an alien just landed. With that, you also want to work on some more structured and well-led ways of dealing with the guests in the house, so the dog can kind of see that they're not as responsible for the situation, because that's why dogs tend to overreact. They feel like, well, now that I'm responsible, I have to overassess it, and then they get so hypervigilant they can't even see what's going on, and your overreactions are like a symptom of that. And again, you want a dog, and these dogs are bred to be protectors, but they should be conscious protectors, not overreactive ones.
Got it. We have a really interesting question from Rita Maston, the one who asked earlier about the boyfriends and the grandchildren.
Okay, I saw you guys laughing. I knew something was coming.
Yeah. This is a wild one. So she has a Chihuahua. She has shown him a frog when he was little and told him, "Do not kill." Now he has a collection of live frogs and toads. He cries when they leave his fence area. He does not hurt them at all, but he checks on his collection.
Well, your dog's the frog whisperer.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's okay. I don't know.
She wants to know if this behavior can be broken or if this is fine and normal. Normal is.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he's not killing the frogs, no harm, no foul. I mean, right. I'm all for all pets getting along, all the species living in harmony. So why not? Yeah, pretty cute actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Send videos of that. I want to see that. Yeah,
yeah,
please send videos. I'm curious.
We're dying to see this. It's so sweet. All right, Linda Owens says, hello from Pennsylvania.
Hi, Linda.
I have a 2-year-old beagle that will not walk on a leash. He has anxiety. Cannot get far from the house before he tries to turn around and go home.
He may actually have too much emphasis on what goes on at home. A lot of dogs that cling to the house, either they kind of pull towards it when you're leaving or rush to get back on the way home. It's like they're too hypervigilant in the home, and they feel like it's like somebody who's so caught up in their business they can't leave the company for a minute because they feel like everything's not going to go right. So I would work on some more order in the home environment, getting your dog to feel more structure, order, less agenda, less hypervigilance, less assessment when it's just everyday life. And then you want to create some structured walking, like I had said with a few other people. Getting your dog to focus more on a command and their insecurities will tend to help them kind of let go of all this extra thinking, because it really is a head thing. It's like once their mind is in a more balanced place, their bodies are going to do what we want. I mean, even for large dogs, I can't control this big dog. To me, a 100-pound dog is no different than a 4-pound dog if you can control their mind, because once their mind is engaged, their body's going to do whatever we want. Of course, behavior problems are not going to happen because they're thinking in a certain way. Their internal energy is in a balanced state. Got it.
This next one is from Christine. She writes, how can I stop my dogs from crying in the car?
There's probably a little bit of car anxiety. It's sort of like dogs that get really impatient on the walk because the car's moving and they're anticipating of where they're going. So you probably want to make sure your dog walks in a structured way. You also want to create some of that place training in the car. So you want to start doing it when you're not driving, obviously. Have the dog lay in one spot. I tend to find dogs do better in the back half of the car. Excuse me, not ahead, because it just makes them want to project. And that's where that whining, forging ahead comes from is that planning too strongly. So getting them to just lay in a place or even in a seatbelt situation where they're just in one spot mentally and physically, it tends to help them. And then what will happen is you start building up how long you drive, the length of it, just kind of increasing that ability to tolerate without that anxiety driving them. But it's not something that dogs need to do. It's just a function of them overthinking it. And by giving them a command, it'll tend to give them a calmer, more orderly way of getting through that. That goes for like everything, not just the car guys.
This one's from Chris Harn, and it's a cat question.
Okay, good. I'll try my best. You got to call Jackson for that. Jackson Galaxy.
How do I stop my cat from spraying?
Call Jackson Galaxy. Honestly, when I do cat cases, I get a lot of these where the dog's chasing the cat. I'm like, we're going to work on the dog, and whatever the cat does, they do. Cats are pretty good dog trainers. Cats are pretty good at feeling the proper balance of energy and integrating whether it's a dog-cat issue. But seriously, Jackson Galaxy is a great cat trainer. He's one of the few guys that really knows his thing. And I know he does, he has a show, and I think he does some, shows, and he puts a lot of info out there. Great. Sorry, look, I got an answer for everything with dogs, but the cat thing,
sure.
Sorry, not my arena.
This is from Lindsay. She says, my 60-pound mixed breed was used to playing with a dog twice her size, but no longer has that playmate. I'm scared to take her to the dog park for the first time in case she tries to roughhouse too hard.
It's a good idea. I would probably try to find maybe a friend, family member dog, or just find some kind of meetup group or class. Sometimes you'll have like impromptu play groups at like a local park where it's just a few dogs, where it's not this whole free-for-all with 20, 30 dogs going on. Plus you might know the people that you're dealing with as far as the owners, so you'll be able to explain your dog a little bit better than people who are going to instantly judge your dog, especially if it's a large dog. They're going to already make assumptions that your dog's being aggressive, even if it's just playing. So you want to get your dog out there and get back into it, because I'm sure he'll find new playmates. Dogs are pretty non-discriminatory. As long as you're cool with me, I'm cool with you, let's be dogs together. But do it in an environment that's going to promote a good first, new experience.
Got it. Makes sense. All right. Linda writes that her one-year-old hound dog
Thank you.
Is afraid of going outside in the dark and has been using the restroom in their bedroom instead.
Okay, so I think it's going to come down to trusting that you can push through that insecurity, and that's your leadership, the command, your training that's going to help push through the walking. And then I would probably work on a little bit of potty training so the dog learns that they don't have that backup plan, like I was saying before with the other dog. Because the dog's like, well, why even bother dealing with the dog if I know I can just go to the bathroom in the house after the fact? So if the dog learns, hey, whether you like the dog or not, you're not going to have that option, it gives them the incentive to investigate what you want them to do more, and then you team it up with more trust in your leadership and the commands to turn off those insecurities. I mean, dogs will get suspicious in the dark, but that's part of life, so your dog should become more acclimated to it by not accommodating it and skillfully easing them into it so it becomes a normal everyday thing for them.
Got
It happens half of the day dark, so your dog, might as well get used to it.
Yeah. Paige writes that her dog gets car sick even on short trips close to home. Is this behavioral? We have never gone on a car ride that he didn't get sick.
That's a tough one. If it's like the anxiety with the dogs are just being impatient in the car, that's very behavioral. And I sometimes will approach the nausea. Well, let's make your dog calm and focus, relax. I mean, even when we get worked up or we don't feel well, sometimes if you relax yourself, everything just feels a little better. Sometimes it is your dog's equilibrium, and then they have different medications or different things that you could give your dog. That's something you might want to talk to your vet about if the behavioral end of it didn't resolve it. But you do some place training in the car, create more of this structure, more of this order. I'm sure you've been doing it, but go on very short car trips initially and then increase them. And just let your dog slowly get used to that movement, because if it is an equilibrium thing, you might have to treat what biologically in your dog is causing it if the behavioral training doesn't resolve it.
Right. I have an interesting question. I wonder if you know the answer to this one. I have a Chi Yorkie mix, and her long fur gets really greasy. Is that normal for long-haired pets?
No, it depends. It's funny because we were having construction in the house, and actually producer Barry knows when he pet Boo, he feels it because he was laying on the construction dust that morning. So sometimes there's something in the environment or in the yard that the dog could be rubbing on. Dogs with longer coats my Yorkie has a kind of a long stringy coat. I know I have to brush her pretty often. Make sure that when you're using shampoos, when you bathe them, don't use something that has alcohols or harsh chemicals in it, because that could actually dry out their natural oils in their skin that could keep their coat maintained properly. But usually there's a reason why a dog would have very oily or greasy fur, especially a long kind of silky coated dog. They have veterinary dermatologists if you feel that it's something more systemic that you could look into as well. But you know, don't overbathe your dog either. Sometimes if we bathe them too frequently, it could create some skin or fur issues as well.
Got it. Interesting. All right, we have a couple questions about this, and you know we can't talk about it enough. Lee Taylor wants to know, how do you feel about head halters and why no harnesses?
The head halters and harnesses, they're usually going to be used to deal with leash pulling, and it doesn't address why the dog pulls on the leash. It's a physical response to a mental and energy issue. It makes sense, like if you're bleeding, you put a Band-Aid on it, but if you have excessive bleeding that won't stop, you have to stop the bleeding, and that's where these dogs are pulling because of overprojection. And when you put a nose halty on them or a harness, you're just physically trying to deal with something that is that overprojection, where if you teach a dog to focus on a walk, you don't have any stress on the leash. And that's the problem with harnesses, is that you're physically holding them back, but now for the life of their walks, they're going to be having this constant pressure, which is how you teach a dog to pull on something like a carting dog or a sled dog. And again, the nose halter just doesn't address the issue. It's sort of like a quick fix solution to a much deeper rooted issue that takes some work and engagement to teach the dog the actual skill to walk properly with an organic understanding of it, not just because the dog feels no choice. And just seeing enough dogs walk with these, it actually is very frustrating for them to feel that you're trying to physically control them, but there's no mental engagement. So like even the dogs are like, why are you pulling my head back? And it creates this discomfort. So what I find is a lot of the people that promote this passive way of training a dog and think that a collar is mean or choking them or we're correcting them to listen, to threaten them, or whatever people interpret, it's actually any kind of training that we're doing that isn't so passive is actually to create a calm, balanced state so the dog doesn't feel any physical stress and they're connecting with you and focusing. You know, and that's where I always find, and look, just as a guy who specializes in leash-related behaviors for 25 years, 99% of the dogs that come to me with that were taught to walk on a harness or were using those no-pull gentle leaders as a way to resolve it, and the problem never got fixed. And many unrelated people are saying when we taught our dog to just walk properly, now it's just not an issue no matter what equipment we use. So right. I hope that explains it, because I get emotionally where a lot of tools or even approaches to training make sense to our human psyche. It's not always quite how the dogs are seeing it, and we have to really understand what's going on from their point of view, which is different than a lot of what people are kind of selling as the way to train the dogs. And that's why there's such an epidemic of dogs with behavior problems. If you look into it, there's far more dogs with behavioral issues, not happy dogs, of course. It's not about arguing, it's about these dogs are miserable and these dogs are getting put down or in shelters. The rescues are overloaded because of these issues that unfortunately people aren't willing to address because it's emotionally not comfortable to expect more from a dog for some reason than just, you know, so we'd rather just put a Band-Aid on it and pretend it's not there, and it's not helping the dogs at all. So I'd rather, you know, we owe more to our dogs than just phoning it in. We have to really make it. And so I wanted to take some extra time to talk about this, because Absolutely. This thing right here is the essence of why, so not harnesses, but this type of thinking that leads us to feel that this kind of training is going to resolve the issue, and it never does, is why so many dogs don't have their issues resolved or on medications, euthanized, and shelters for these exact problems. Yeah. It shouldn't be. All these dogs can be fixed if we approach what's really going on.
Absolutely.
Okay, there's my PSA for the day.
I love it. No, it's important. And we actually only have time for one more question.
Sure.
This one's from Big Head Ted.
Hey, Big Head Ted. Big head buoys right here. Yeah. I'm big forehead Brett. Yeah.
He says he has 3 dogs that are just crazy at the front door, and one of them started biting and nipping at people.
He's overreactive too. So what you need to do is prepare for your guests. A lot of dogs want to feel that you have a strategy in place before the game even starts. If you're a master chess player, you know how this game's going to play out right when the first move is made. And you have to, just being the human in your dog's life, in the shared environment of the home that you're living in, you have to have that role for them. So you have to know when the guests are coming over, have them in order. You're outnumbered, but if you can get all 3 going, it would be great pack management. You want to have them all calm and placed and focused, and then when the guest shows up, lead them to the door, put them in a strong sit, make them focus, lead them back in, and create certain sense of order, direction, command for the dogs during these new transitions, and it really teaches them how to get through it without this overreaction, which is, again, this is all symptoms of a dog taking on more than they can handle in our shared world, and they're acting out because they just don't know what to do. So it's like, hey, now you know what to do. Humans are in control. This is what you focus on. It just changes the whole event and goes through it in such a more productive way, and then eventually they'll be able to do this on their own. So be consistent. Teach them a new experience for these transitional times, whether it be greetings, walks, whatever it may be, and you'll see, any of you watching, your dogs are going to start acting the way you want because you're taking the time to show them. And if you're being, creating this game plan, this relational script, you'll see right away they just want to seek your guidance and not be so independent. And that's the connection we're looking for with our dogs. Okay, we're done?
Yep.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Do I say we're good? We're good?
Oh, yeah. Just be sure to watch Untrainables on Saturday.
Yes, thank you. Watch Untrainables, new episode this Saturday, and keep sending your questions and send your videos in. I love seeing this, and not just the words. I want to see what's going on with your dogs. Okay, so there was the Q&A from the Untrainables. And if any of you have any follow-up questions or supplementary questions or your own questions, please contact me, dogtrainingla@gmail.com. Thank you so much for always taking the time to listen. Everyone who sent me your sweet messages telling me how much the podcast has been helping you and you find it entertaining. Thanks again. So don't forget, anyone who hasn't, subscribe, rate, review, go on my social media at the Dog Savant or Dog Training LA on YouTube, and keep listening. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.